Russian allies are turning against Putin's regime. China, India and Turkey have reduced their oil supplies from Russia. President Trump says that US sanctions hit Russia hard. Meanwhile, Putin's drones have targeted Brussels again. What is the current impact of US sanctions on Russia and how harmful are they for Putin's regime? Russia's seaborne crude oil shipments have plunged to their lowest levels in months as newly US sanctions against Moscow's biggest oil companies begin to reverberate through global energy markets. According to a vessel tracking data compiled by Bloomberg, the 4-week average of Russian crude exports fell to 3.5 million barrels per day through November 2nd, a decline of nearly 190,000 barrels per day compared with the previous 4-week period ending on October 26. It marks the steepest drop in exports since January 2024. Bloomberg's analysis attributes the downturn largely to refineries in China, India and Turkey, which together account for more than 95% of Russia's seaborne oil purchases, cutting or pausing orders amid concerns about exposure to US sanctions. Trump administration last month targeted Rosneft and Lukoil, Russia's two biggest oil companies, in a sweeping sanctions package aimed at curbing Moscow's wartime revenues. Although tankers continue to load crude at Russian ports, refineries are hesitant to receive those cargoes. As a result, the amount of Russian oil sitting at sea without a final destination has climbed sharply. Bloomberg estimates that more than 380 million barrels of Russian crude oil are now on the water, an increase of about 27 million barrels, or 8% since early September. Quote, the crude is being produced and shipped, but it's not being accepted as readily, a senior energy analyst told Bloomberg, describing a build-up of floating storage that could signal both logistical strain and buyers' reluctance. China's imports of seaborne Russian crude oil averaged about 970,000 barrels per day in the 4 weeks through November 2nd, a noticeable drop from previous months. India's shipments fell to 940,000 barrels per day, down from roughly 1.6 million barrels per day in late October. Turkey's intake slipped into around 320,000 barrels per day over the same period. Bloomberg reports that many refineries in these countries have paused or delayed cargoes that might involve sanctions Russian firms, even when the crude itself is not directly targeted. Others are seeking alternative suppliers, including producers in the Middle East, Africa, Central Asia, to mitigate the risk of secondary sanctions or trade disruptions. For Russia, the loss of its three largest foreign buyers represents a serious blow. The value of its crude export shipments fell to about $1.1 billion in the week ending November 2nd, down nearly 27% from the previous week's revised figure, according to Bloomberg. Bloomberg vessels tracking data shows roughly 1.3 million barrels per day of crude leaving Russian ports with either vague or undisclosed endpoint, including around 1.2 million barrels per day from Western terminals signaling generating destinations such as Port Said or Suez. Aboard 140,000 barrels per day are on ships that have not yet transmitted any destinations. Energy analysts say this dark fleet shipments underscore how Moscow has sought to obscure a strike pattern since the onset of Western sanctions. It's a shell game on the water, said one European trader who spoke on the condition of anonymity. They load, they rename, they switch off transponders, and eventually it gets somewhere, but the chain of custody is getting riskier for buyers. The steep decline in Russia's export volumes coincides with renewed US effort to choke off Kremlin's wartime oil revenues. Washington's latest sanctions, which targeted not only Rosneft and Lukoil, but also several ship management companies accused of facilitating sanctions evasion, have already prompted compliance warnings from global insurers, banks and shipping firms. Bloomberg's report indicates that the combined impact of these restrictions is being left more swiftly than many expected by curbing refiners' willingness to take Russian barrels. The sanctions have disrupted Moscow's post-2022 strategy to offroading crude flows from Europe to Asia. At the same time, Russia's Urals crude has seen its discount to Brent widen again in Asian markets. That discount, which had narrowed earlier this year, is now at its largest since mid-2024, reflecting reduced demand and greater perceived risk. Meanwhile, as string drone sightings over Belgium's main airport this week forced repeated shutdowns of airspace, grounding flights and stranding hundreds of passengers while prompting an urgent European response to this. Belgian aviation authorities confirmed that operations at Brussels airport were suspended twice, first on Tuesday night and again on Thursday evening after drones were spotted flying near restricted airspace. Officials describe the incident as serious for the country. According to Bloomberg and Belgian Air Traffic Agency, the first alert came shortly before 8 p.m. local time on Tuesday, when controllers detected a drone close to a flight path near the runway. After briefly resuming operations, the airport was shut down again around 10 p.m. following a second sighting. Roughly 500 passengers were left stranded overnight as dozens of flights were cancelled or diverted to other airports, including Liège, Charleroi, and Austin-Bruges. Airspace restrictions lasted into early Wednesday as officials worked to confirm that the skies were clear. 2 days later, on Thursday, a new wave of drones activity caused another halt in operations, this time for about 30 minutes. Flights were suspended around 7 p.m. and gradually resumed just before 10 p.m. local time, Brussels Airport said in a statement. The disruptions caused cascading delays across Belgium's aviation network. Incidents extended beyond civilian airspace. Belgian defense officials confirmed that drones were also spotted near Kleine Brugger Air Base and Florennes Air Base, both of which house sensitive military assets. Defense Minister Theo Franken described activity as potentially coordinated, warning that the incursions might have been designed to test or bypass Belgian anti-drone defenses. These are not ordinary hobbyists, he told reporters. We are talking this extremely serious. The country's National Security Council convened an emergency session on Thursday to discuss what Prime Minister Alexander De Croo called a clear threat to national security. The Interior Ministry said it was preparing a new legislation to require full registration of all civilian drones and to expand detection systems around airports and military sites. While officials have not attributed the activity to any specific actor, Belgian media have reported that security analysts are examining whether the incident could be linked to a foreign intelligence operation or hybrid warfare tactics. Similar drone sightings have been reported in recent months near airports and energy facilities in Germany, Denmark, and Norway. By Friday morning, flights had resumed at Brussels airports through security restrictions. Airport management said it is coordinating with police and Federal Aviation Authority to identify the drones. Quote, "The safety of passengers and crew is our top priority," the airport said. "We regret the inconvenience caused by these illegal drone flights." Aviation experts say the events underscore the vulnerability of large airports to small, easily available drones that can disrupt operations even without causing physical harm. In recent months, air traffic near Frankfurt, Copenhagen, and Oslo has been also halted over similar sightings. European officials have raised concerns that state sports or actors could be using drones incursions to probe air defense. For Belgium, the stakes are high, as home to both EU institutions and NATO's military headquarters. The country is considered one of Europe's most sensitive airspaces. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine.